So this will be my video over. Like I said before, I'm not gonna do these until the very last four, like all. Well, not back to back, but I'll do the Gorblish Reich, Empire, or no, I'll do Italy, Japan, United States. So that's just how I'm gonna do it. But we're on to Irkutsk, I believe, because after Indonesia, I don't see any other I nations that it's not Irkutsk, besides the ones I've already played. Um, this guy, oh yeah, he's the guy that we played. I don't know if you watched my Buryatia video. This is like the libertarian socialism guy who's trying to like set the ideals of Marx and all that, or Buchanan. And this is the more fundamentalist, authoritarian socialism guy. Control over the Far East. Oh wait, never mind. The Buchanan regime fractured and collapsed when it faced the Nazi onslaught. When Buchanan himself disappeared amidst the chaos, NKVD director Genkirk Yogada mobilized his surviving NKVD divisions to evacuate the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet as eastward as he could. From there, the remains of the Buchanan government attempted to retain control over the Far East. But their grip slowly began to crumble away as warlords and bandits rose up to take the land for themselves. Yagoda quickly lost confidence in the party leadership. He and his NKVD began to take over various state functions, much to the chagrin of the Presidium. The legitimate heirs to the Soviet Union are now in a precarious position. The balance of power in the Union is teetering between Yagoda loyalists in the state and the apparatchiks of the party. Bureaucracy, as if that isn't enough. A former Soviet commander, Valery Sablin, has risen up against the Irkutsk government across Lake Baikal. Yagoda will have to quash this uprising swiftly if he hopes to one day reclaim the Union. Got some like bitter remnant, KVD bureaucracy. These are some good things, yeah. Ironclad Union. So yeah, they have like buffs because they're on site. Really, the people besides the Revolutionary Front, I think over there are the actual people of what's left of the Russia, or the Soviet Union, I should say. The Presidium of the Supreme Soviet. On December 30th, 1922, the Treaty of the Creation of the USSR established the Soviet Union. It was initially composed as the Russian, Ukrainian, Belarusian, and Transcaucasian republics. As of January 1st, 1962, due to technical difficulties, the Soviet Union only technical difficulties, what? governs the Irkutsk Oblast. When Moscow fell to the Nazis' invasion, General Secretary Nikolai Bukharin disappeared. The Presidium of the Supreme Soviet quickly elected NKVD director Genkirk Yagoda as their provisional leader. The wise Yagoda wasted no time in saving the Presidium. In a daring escape, his NKVD motorized divisions managed to spirit the Soviet government away to the east, across the old Siberian plan infrastructure. To the city of Irkutsk, upon arrival, the Presidium tried to reassert control over the old Union, but few believed the old Buchanan government was relevant to the new Russia. The government began to lose their grip on the Far East military, as military strongmen, native Siberian revolutionaries, and fascist collaborators, heirs of Harbin, carved out their own slice of the Far East themselves. The latest blow to the Soviet state is the insurrection of the Valery Sablin in Buryatia. Formerly a loyal soldier, Sablin has been known his true colors as a utopian left ultra deviantologist, seeking to remake the Soviet Union as his naive and puerile image. The decline in the eyes of the General Secretary Yagoda directly attributed to the incompetence of the Presidium. Their beloved Bukharin failed to the Soviet Union, and his toadies, toadies, are repeating all the same mistakes. Yagoda has thus begun empowering his loyal NKVD ever since the evacuation. While previously a secret police service, the NKVD has assumed more and more functions of the Soviet state over time. Yagoda's detractors in the party often referred to the party faction, just the party faction, and led by Sergei Beznov, alleged that Yagoda is dismantling the Soviet proletarian bureaucracy to replace it with an NKVD bureaucracy. If that is true, then it is only because the NKVD are the last loyal force that can save the revolution from its enemies within and without. The Irkutsk government is the legitimate government of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, even if no one seems to care. If Yagoda and the Presidium can overcome the Sablinite mutiny and restore order across the Far East and beyond, then perhaps Soviet Russia will one day return to the way it was. Yeah, we go to rebuild the Soviet economy, restore the Soviet... Yeah, we got this. We're going to rise from the ashes onwards. Legacy of the Union. The young child carelessly wandered the rooms of the house, as always, noticing even the tiniest detail. After hours of exploration, he came across a small chest. Inside it, one could find a grand collection of glamorous medals, photos, and documentations. The boy turned to his father and asked him, "What were these?" "Some old things from the days of glory," he said. One item caught the eye of his child, though, a shiny red and gold medal. "This is the Order of Lenin," answered the father, before the boy could even open his mouth. "Who's Lenin?" the child asked. The NKVD guard preparing to take the official to the... What? Oh, official to Presidium looked at him, but he could not help but smile. Okay, that makes sense. So he was like, how does this guy not know Lenin? A great man. Perhaps even if he was still alive, we wouldn't be in this mess in the first place. Wars, deaths, and oppression of the masses. It could have all been avoided. You need to remember, son, that it is up to us to continue his work. Before you were born, the true rulers of the motherland fell to the invaders in Moscow. But we, the members of the Presidium, saved it, with help of Comrade Yagoda and his friends, and fled to Irkutsk. Why are all these awful things happening? Why can't we be happy? The story of how we got here is not a simple one, but you must learn it first. Germans came with their tanks and their bombs. They invaded the motherland and enslaved millions, ending Bukharin's rule. Then came the rich and their intellectuals, who fought us when we were in dire straits, and ended the chances of reclaiming the nation with the Siberian War. Next were the Japanese puppets, who came from the east, and the final blow was the mutiny across the lake. We were only left to continue what Lenin started. So they made all this happen? Yes, son, yes they did. And Comrade Yagoda will make sure they all pay for it. And this is the same kind of thing, the split in the family. I remember when I played Buryatia, I can't say his name, but it was the same kind of event. 10 years you go to... Okay, so this is like... The kid was saying that he was like... talking about how he needed to go, and this is him saying he needs to fight for him, probably. His son, Iron Eyes, as a piercing blade. Briefest moment, he did not know what to say. 10 years he served Yagoda. 10 years he had risen through the ranks, the NKVD. Blood stained his hands, and he rationalized it during sleepless nights. It was necessary. No, this is the same one. Unnecessary. His words doom him, but cruel men corrupted it, my son. They brought me down a path I should never have followed, and I am old now. My passion is dried. Follow your heart. Yeah, so you're saying follow his heart. In that path, we won, so I'm scared that guy's probably dead now, because he did not win this time. Putting down the traitors. Yeah, true patriots of the motherland, revolutionary morals, values paid for dearly in the tight streets of Leningrad. The long rails of Novosibirsk have not been sufficiently practiced or defended. The results are cataclysmic, from bickering politicians who refuse to act in the face of fascist bandit armies to the near collapse of the counter-revolutionary Republicans in the 50s. Much has been lost, millions of lives have been sacrificed, unwilling by those who would dare to neglect the lessons of the October Revolution. The Buryat Sablinites are the next in a long line of this ideological rot. It is a rot that clearly spread beyond control, as Valery Sablin himself was once promising NKVD commissar, after being foolishly entrusted to organize labor in the construction of the hydroelectric dam for Lake Baikal. He seized the radio to spew his utopian, convenient revolutionary. Yeah, okay. Revisionism. Yeah, we got this. So we're just. Oh. Yeah, the two brothers are fighting. I remember that one too. No more. Okay, yeah. Now it's just time for me to win this. Attacks on the Children's Crusade. Every muscle in Yagoda's body tensed as he read the report from his spy in Irkutsk. Grinding his teeth, he read it once, twice, his vice-like grip crinkling its edges. The upstart bastard Soblin and his coterie of traitorous harpies had begun to put his men they'd captured on trial, accusing them of crimes against the revolution and the people of Russia. What utter tripe! The mutineers had committed the greatest crime of all, treachery, by daring to take arms against the legitimate government of Russia, in pursuit of a ridiculous, impossible ideal. Yagoda felt his stomach ulcer grind and pulse as the thought of glorified child filling his throat with the repulsive acid taste of his own bile. Worse than the fascists, the monarchs, the revisionists, the mutineers were traitors, his own men denouncing him, fighting against him. Him, the rightful heir to Bukharin. The veins on his forehead throbbing, Yagoda tore the report apart, filing the pieces into the fireplace. Oh, flinging. When his men retook Buryatia, he would crush Soblin in his hands like a piece of fruit. He deserved nothing less than ultimate agony of the traitor's reward. Treachery is a spear pointed at both sides. Oof, that sucks. That's not a good debuff. But we're gonna remember the revolution, so I'm gonna get some good buffs down here. Finally got the Civil War dealt with. Probably gonna. Yep. Stop his focus, but it won't matter anyways. Soblin's end. Yagoda felt the cold flee from his body as his rage grew. It was a pure rage, so diffuse in its targets that its potency overwhelmed his mind. He was angry at a great many things, and a great many people, and today made him especially furious. It was important that such rage was directed. At this precise moment, it landed upon the guard to his right. A single stare leveled the man. His sloped posture rapidly corrected itself, and the incessant tapping of his foot ceased. That would do. His composure regained, Yagoda's eyes returned to the malnourished creature that sat before him. The foolish boy who refused to break, or even bend. A lesser man might have been swayed by such a display, but Yagoda was not impressed by traitors. He had seen too many. His hand clasped together on the table, and he stared into Soblin's lowered eyes. I tire of this spectacle. You have been offered a chance to repent for your crimes, to show the people the error in your ways, and heal the union you fractured. Yagoda noticed the fire flash across the young man's face, the same spark that he had observed upon detainment. He remained defiantly silent. Maybe you perceive yourself as a brave man. I know better enough that time has been wasted. There is much to be done beyond this petty revolt. If you wish for death, so be it. His hand rose from the table, and upon it, his motioning, Soblin was carried away. The new union would have no room for such foolish men. Utopians, revisionists, and squabbling politicians would no longer be allowed to destroy the dream fought for so long ago. If the union was to reclaim life from the fascists, it would have to be stronger this time. He would make sure of it. Good riddance. Yeah, okay. Bam. The union is victorious. And then, yeah, I'll just come back when there's some decisions and stuff. A death in the family. Boldarev had spent a few nights now sleepless after Soblin's ultimate defeat. Even as he went about his day, his anxiety only barely keeping him up with his exhaustion. He looked at the front door whenever he could, hoping to hear a knock from his one and only son, hoping beyond hope that they escaped captured by Yagoda's thugs. Alas. Oh, alias. What? Oh, Elisa, bless her soul, worried about his own relentless, even restlessness, even if she tried to hide it. If he knew Yagoda, though, and he did, all too well, then he was not the one she should be worried about. Their son was in greater danger than most people could imagine. As Boldarev was reading a book early in the night, trying to calm himself and finally get some sleep, a knock came. He nearly fell out of the floor trying to get up. He ran so quickly out of the door he feared he might trip. When he reached the door and opened it, however, the excitement on his face vanished. That was not his son. This was an NKVD officer. His stare was cold and unfeeling. "A letter for you, comrade." Boldarev opened it, fear quickly building down to his very bones. It was a letter, one first thanking him for his years of service in the NKVD, then it was to explain that his son's body had been discovered at the site of the final capture of Sablin, identified by old NKVD friends of Boldarev, who had known his son as a child. It was signed by Yagoda personally. Boldarev collapsed to his knees, tears streaming out of his eyes, which stared after the retreating back of the NKVD officer. It was useless, utterly useless. Nobody could oppose Yagoda. God damn it, his name. Yet he'd been foolish enough to let his son try. It was a choice he would regret for the rest of his days. Even when Elisa, who had been awoken by the commotion, came to comfort him, he barely felt it. He barely felt anything at all. Yeah, that was the one event we had earlier about the kid going to fight his true revolution. Oof. The Great Purge. "Comrade Yagoda, you wish to speak with me?" Pavel Bulvanov asked as he stepped into Yagoda's office. The door was pulled shut behind him, and the room was now silent, save for the clock on Yagoda's desk. "Have a seat, Comrade Bulvanov." Gingrich Yagoda always had a humorless look about him, but there was something especially troubling about his demeanor this time. "Comrade Bulvanov, I'm sure you're aware by now that I'm rather displeased with the state of my administration." Bulvanov could only guess where this was headed. "Yes, comrade, I've heard rumors." "Allow me to reveal you how I really feel then. I'm absolutely livid, Bulvanov. Ever since we defeated Sablin's merry band of traitors, it has become painfully clear that I am surrounded by corrupt buffoons who couldn't run an office to save their lives." Although Yagoda did not raise his voice, his eyes betrayed a great anger. "I see. Have you tried scheduling a meeting? Perhaps you could speak sense into them, comrade." Yagoda frowned and continued to bash my head against a wall. "Whoa. Oh, and continue." I'm so stupid. I thought he was just doing that to Bulvanov. "Come on, Bulvanov. I wouldn't have asked my security chief if I intended to reason with these people." Yagoda then pushed a folder across the desk towards Bulvanov. "This is a dossier of the troublemakers I've been gathering for some time. I want the NKVD to start a full investigation as soon as possible." Bulvanov noticed a smaller piece of paper attached to the folder. Upon closer inspection, it was a list of names and instructions. "And what is this for, Comrade Yagoda?" "These are people that I want behind bars, or in front of a firing squad by tomorrow morning." Yeah. Wake up to a call of a lifetime. Later that night, large trucks with brim NKVD officers. Yeah, the Great Purge had begun. Screams and gunshots echoed through the night. Yeah, these guys do not mess around. It does make me realize authoritarianism was a basic thing, but authoritarianism, no matter ideology, is normally always bad. Like, the fascists do the same thing, these guys do the same thing. Yeah, the despotists do the same thing. It's all just authoritarianism. No man should have too much power. Unless it's me, of course, then I can perfectly run a country, because I'm impartial and amazing. Ilya sat leisurely upon the tall red rock, an unbecoming sight for an NKVD officer, perched upon an outcropping that emerged from the depths of Lake Baikal. He glanced back towards the neatly folded clothes on the shore. A younger Ilya would have been afraid to exhibit such lax behavior on duty changed him immensely. Over the aging murder, a peace refused to vacate. His eyes turned to the green waters before him, taking their time to meet the sun-kissed horizon below it. He saw faint outlines of the Nerpa seals, unique little fishermen who frequently found themselves pestered by birds. In many ways, he was related to the birds. He was like them, a pest. While people of Irkutsk attempt to carve out lives in this Russian hell, Ilya harassed them. In his head sat thousands of words, snippets of conversations between lovers, friends, families. All of them were stolen, private snapshots of lives acquired via surveillance. Upon his hands there was much blood, young and old, idealist and cynic, patriot and traitor. Each man had met Ilya's justice. He laughed at his dramatic thoughts. What had made of the Sablonites any different? The regret he felt now, the one that seemingly turned him into an inspiring poet, was one he hadn't experienced in decades. Perhaps, though, Ilya was the seal instead, a man hunted by his own pests, invisible to him for many years. The seal, 1,000 lurking birds had finally come home to roost. As he stood upon the rock and began lowering swim to shore, he made a decision. He would not be returning to Irkutsk, and all that tied him to that place seemed shattered by whatever realizations that lake bestowed. His duty was a faint distraction, a distant cloud. So it was an NKVD veteran abandoned his duties and set off for the Siberian wastes. Lake Baikal sure is beautiful. That's kind of pretty words, pretty poetry. Pavel said, "Oh, there's another Lake Baikal's just that crazy, I guess. Where is Irkutsk here? So this is the lake, maybe? Oh no, it's this lake, okay. A day of rest. Pavel sat in the boat in the waters of Lake Baikal, his boat pole hanging lazily in his hands. He had been in the waters, stranger on the coast, leaning back in the chair. "What's your name, kid?" he asked to break up the silence. The stranger seemed startled and hesitant to reply. After a minute he replied with a quiet "Alexander." Before going back to nursing his ail, Pavel simply nodded. "A good name. Alexander. A strong name. Where are you from? I don't recognize your accent." Pavel was interested. He rarely had company on his fishing trips and wanted to make the most of it. Again, Alexander seemed surprised, with even more hesitation than last time he spoke. I'm from the west, far to the west, past Moscow." Something strange passed his eyes as he looked out over the waters. Pavel was curious. He'd grown up in West Russia under the Tsar, and yet he could not for the life of him place Alexander's accent. As faint as it may have been, "Well, you've certainly come a long way. Let me first welcome you to Baikalia. It is a beautiful place. If you can ignore the tyrant, never mind." Pavel was quick to change the subject, in case the man was one of Yagoda's dogs. "Have you any family?" Alexander looked pensive, and a great sadness could be seen in his eyes. For a moment, "I did. They are gone now. It has been 10 years. He seemed surprised at his reply, as though he could not believe it could have been so long. "My father used to take me fishing when I was a boy. I do not often allow myself many pleasures, but I thought today I would honor him." Pavel thought at the man with no understanding, turned back to his pole, and let Alexander enjoy the quiet day of on the Baikal. I wonder if there's going to be more explaining, or is that like the Beauregard? Because he's normally doing like saving stuff, so I don't know if that's him or not. I doubt it. A traitor's words. Gregory Grinko took a sip of his coffee. His eyes seemed distant. It was interesting to me how far the bureaucrats were willing to go for Sablin's ideas. Are our policies really so terrible? It's not like they've changed much since Bukharin's day. Nobody was raising a fuss back then. Sergei Bezanov, Yagoda's foreign minister, thought of what to say next. Every so often, the two would meet in unassuming locales to discuss things they never did speak at the workplace. "Gregory, do you think maybe his promises held merit?" Grinko immediately halted, raising his mugs. As if he heard this, he looked up at Bezanov. "What are you saying, exactly?" he said, raising an eyebrow. His men were willing to lay down their lives for his ideas. Fought us tooth and nail. We may not like it, but there are something worth looking there. It wouldn't make much sense otherwise. Grinko resumed his drinking. Maybe. What we know now isn't all just talk. Have you all to say the right words and people will die for you. Soblin obviously knew that well, but we'll never know if it was coming from a genuine place. Perhaps not. But who says we can't succeed where he failed? It would surely go a long way, endearing us to most people. What Soblin talked about was utopian drivel. The truth, you can't run from effective government on ideals alone. Comrade Goto would see it. Increases party. Should forget this conversation ever happened. In the files. For the past 2 weeks, a special NKVD commission has been meeting their headquarters in Irkutsk every day. The ground working, investigating more high-profile targets of Yagota's purchase. Yeah, Security General on this occasion General Yagoda himself. Now, comrades, we're in the process of gathering evidence to arrest every man who obtained Soviet political office in the past. What? Who has attained so in question? What the fuck? That's crazy. Almost every man in the room looked Bolnov. Once these men are in custody, you promise they're dealt with. Much in Bolnov's dismay. This is insane, dude. What you mean to tell me these idiots have been meeting a place for almost 2 goddamn weeks and still haven't figured it out? Oh, these are the Soblinites, I think. Yeah. You left the room. So yeah, they just were dealt with. Didn't want to read all that because it was mostly just yap, not gonna lie. And I don't got that much time left. Comrade Maxon. Alexei grunted as his back struck the ground a yard or two below the rocks as he ever so carefully tried to maneuver over just moments before. Training had consumed every day, relatively calm before the others. As the bulk of today's training had wrapped up, the officers had sent Alexei to fetch some things from the camp. Walking there was a 23-year-old who had tried to walk along the rocks like a child, carrying their balance to the brick barrier. Digging his gloved hands into the snow behind him, the young soldier hauled himself into an upright position, now face red. Battered by the bitter winds, he found himself staring out at Lake Baikal from its bank, dusting snow off his coat. He kept his eyes on the horizon. Couldn't hurt to sit here for another second, he argued, opening his satchel with a pop and retrieving his canteen. Alexei watched the stars begin to shine brighter and the sky shift from purple to inky black over the course of 15 minutes. Just as he began to stand up, something white darted past his vision. Righting himself, his eyes followed the blur to the edges of the stones, where now sat a rabbit, white as the driven snow, munched on a plant, struggling to grow in the frozen soil. Completely undisturbed by his presence, the bunny watched the clear lake water. Alexei remembered his childhood pets, animals he had found in the woods, and his mother forced him to abandon. Hunching down, he produced his canteen once again, began pouring out water for the bunny. Left and right, assuring no one was watching him, the soldier scooped him up in the satchel. That's adorable. Fully prepared to chew out by the brass. I'll call him Maxim. That's adorable. Comrade Maxim. That's so cute. And yeah, we're gonna... opportunities for forgiveness. So they're probably gonna be doing work for us, and then they can get back into the government. So this is basically, they got around to all the people that they were trying to purge, and they just opened fire and kill them. Oof. This guy just looks fucking evil, bro. He looks like he would, like, kick dogs for fun, like kick puppies. You know what I mean? Continuing course. Reclaiming the Union. Ginkrich Yagoda has been spending the evening as he usually did, meticulously going over the mountain of reports and dossiers that had accumulated in his office that day. On this occasion, the task was not as soul-grinding as usual. Each report painted small fragments of a much larger optimistic future. All of Yagoda's plans and hard work were finally coming together. One report stated clearly that any lingering Sablinite influence in Irkutsk had seemingly dissipated for good. It seemed that all of the investigations and purges had borne fruit. After all, even now Yagoda couldn't help feel but the remnants of anger and betrayal when he had thought about the foolish exploits of the mutineer, and then how brazen the defiance of the Union caused him so much trouble. At least now he could take comfort in the fact that they will never trouble him again. After some time, he had finally come to the real meat of the evening's reading, the Red Army's reports of combat readiness. What he saw was all the more promising. Not only had High Command report that the military was close to recovering all manpower lost during the mutiny, but also that the subsequent organizational reforms were going through without an issue, intermixed with various updates on the NKVD's espionage of the neighboring states. Same conclusion: fascist forces were hopelessly unable to match the Red Army in pitched battle. Once the proper plans of attack have been drawn up, Yagoda anticipated that the coming wars will be a mere triviality, assuming the NKVD's reports were accurate. Lighting a cigarette, Yagoda leaned back in his chair and began to think about the future. It was obvious that the war for the interior was coming close. From this point onward, his efforts would almost solely be focused on reclaiming whatever was wrestled away from the Soviet Union in its darkest hours. The uphill struggle to take back what was lost would soon begin, and the world would never be the same. Failure is not an option. Yeah, okay. I will do this path when I get back from school. So I'm going to save it. Night watch. Ivan hated watching the border with the Black Army. It was boring, cold, and miserable. At least Ivan had a useful distraction in the form of his friend Alexander. When Ivan got particularly bored, he could at least strike up a conversation. So these Black Army guys, they're totally lying about being anarchists, right? Why would they think that? They've got communes, they hate states, or statists, and they're insufferable. That sounds like an anarchist to me, Alexander replied, not looking away from the empty tundra in front of him. But they have an army, and I thought anarchists hate armies. That Steppy guy or whatever his name is, he's definitely running the Black Army as a junta. It's just a self-conscious junta. Nah, these anarchists like armies, apparently. The Black Army are definitely anarchists also. Either way, they're enemies of the Soviet Union, so it really doesn't make a difference to us. I guess that's true. We're still stuck in this tiny hut no matter what. There are more pressing matters to discuss, such as how these coats are too thin. The Black Army, People's Revolutionary Council, it's not them, are they the Siberian Black Army? That's why I haven't got to them. A small man of Yakut descent arrived on the horseback. So this was my message to Aladdin. NKVD forces are already en route to town. It appears violence will not be necessary. A stronger union, one piece at a time. Nice, a negotiated return. Just get a free annex on them. The party shackled. The guard stood by the door, menacingly, the gun allegedly for self-defense apparent in the NKVD badge, shining on their uniforms. In a loud voice, Yagoda exclaimed what the new proposed decree would entail to the Presidium's deputies. By order of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet, the following actions will be taken to ensure the safety and the prosperity of the Union. Firstly, the office is of General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union and Premier of the Soviet Union shall be merged. The current General Secretary, Ginkrich Yagoda, will assume the duties of the Premier, while maintaining his current position, and dismissal of Premier Yakov Araganov will be deemed as ineffective, owing to his missing at the time of the alleged decision. Comrade Konstantin Chinerko shall thus be instated as Commissar of the Foreign Affairs, while Comrade Beznov will be indefinitely removed from his current position. The same faces that so recently were brave enough to stand against Yagoda and his closest allies in the Presidium session now seemed obedient and almost terrified. No one dared to respond. They all simply stayed quiet. It was once again the director of the NKVD who had to break the silence. May I assume everyone approves of the decree? There was no answer. Then it was in effect from now on. Not a single deputy had opened his mouth since Yagoda had described the plan to revert the revealed plots of the party's officials, whose grand plan to climb power had been shattered in minutes. Increased state influences. So yeah, a secure union. That's not for sure if that's exactly the one. Or maybe he gets a, well, if it loads. No, okay, so it is probably just this one, I think, maybe. I don't think so. I don't really know where that's at, but we got this. So we're basically like role-playing Stalin almost in this. Yeah, the brave Soviets, they add no step back. Bukharin hesitated to enforce revolutionary discipline, but yeah, we shall not. Any person who tries to retreat will be punished tantamount. Yeah. The Far Eastern Campaign. General Yagoda looked with interest as the generals made plans that made them on the large map of that represented the Russian Far East. The base of the map itself was from the 1940s. It was hastily drawn to marker. Oh, this is the same, almost the same, because they had to do it in the other path, the Sablonite path. But yeah, Yagoda, attention focused on the map, spoke up. Lushikov, how ready are our forces? Lushikov backed away from the map, turned to Yagoda. As ready as they'll ever be, comrade. Then I think, comrades, it's time to put our plans into motion. These fascist dogs have blighted Russia with their toxic presence for too long. It would bring me great pleasure to see them crushed like the vermin they are. Yagoda paused for a moment. Remember that this is very important step towards reunification. Comrades, first, we retake the Far East. Then we liberate the rest of Russia. And beyond, I will not accept failure. Not when the fate of the Soviet Union still lies upon the precipice. Yagoda's short speech would resonate heavily with all who heard it. The next few months would see the lands of the Far East drenched in blood. With a great deal of effort and a little luck, only the true heirs of the Soviet Union would remain standing once the smoke had cleared. Yagoda would make sure of that. The road to victory will be paved with blood. Earlier, the Commissar Krukov, the distant thumping of artillery, the mud, the dirt, the wide-eyed, trembling young souls looking for the commissars for guidance. The only notable difference here is that Krukov was the one being relied on. I was just like you once, comrades, shaking my boots, wondering if I would live to see tomorrow. I was there when the fascist bastards invaded our motherland, and I was there when we almost sent them crawling back from their holes. I've seen what the cruelties these fascists are capable of. In victory, it's fine. And I make promise to myself to never allow such injustices to ever happen again. The commissar got up and stood in front of his men. He could feel the orator inside of him taking over. This is not the war against those who have betrayed the people, but a war against to repulse the dark clouds of fascism that loom over everything we hold dear. It is not wrong to feel fear, but it is wrong for fear to hold you and to shape you. Think of your friends, your homes, your loved ones. Would you stand by these fascist dogs, march in to impose their murderous rule over them? Comrades, put your fear behind you and fill your hearts with rage. Build this anger within you and use it well. When the time comes, we send these murdering fascist bastards to their early grave. Kurkov's short speech was punctuated by fierce, passionate cheers from the men. For once, the commissar could see a fire burning in their eyes. Deep down, he wondered how many of them would still be alive after today. Not one step back. I understand those who were present noted that he seemed strangely calm and collected throughout the horror ordeal. Minutes a single NKVD guard pulled Matovsky by his collar and led him out for the courtroom. Once they reached the basement door, the guard knocked on the door to be let in. He sighed and stood in front of the door, idly wondering why they didn't just leave it open. The guard's thoughts were interrupted by a sharp blow to his side of his head. As the guard fell to the floor, Matovsky scrambled to grab his keys. The guard was unable to react before Matovsky had freed himself and made a run for it. Yep, he ran and the NKVD caught his ass. We'll get on with it. NKVD obliged. Several bullets struck Matovsky. Slippery bastard. That's what you get for running from the NKVD. Actually, probably the better choice to run than just get murdered anyways. Yeah. I'm pretty sure no matter what, he's definitely dead. The trial of the false Tsar. Mikhail II, false claimant of the long-dead Russian throne, and staunch monarchist, you fully admit that you betrayed the revolution of Russia and are fully responsible for the deaths of every man of the Soviet Union who had lost on the battlefield. You have been proven to be guilty and now sentenced to the supreme penalty. You will be shot. Mikhail slowly nodded his hands tied together and grabbed by the back of his neck by an NKVD commissar, forcing Mikhail to come with him. As he led to the back room behind the court and down a flight of stairs, Mikhail was violently thrown down, and he winced in pain, hitting the concrete floor and scrambling onto his knees, looking up at the night. The commissar prepared his revolver and spun the barrel and made a motion with his finger for Mikhail to turn around, which he begrudgingly complied, tears forming in his eyes. Do you have any last words, Mikhail? Mikhail gulped and softly sobbed to himself, looking down at the floor and closing his eyes tight, feeling the barrel of a gun nudged against his back of his head. Mikhail took every bit more to cry. The NKVD commissar began to grow impatient, waiting for Mikhail to speak his final words. I just wanted to go back home where I belong. He stayed there, on his knees, with the gun still pointed at his head. Without hesitation, the commissar pulled the trigger. Just like Nicholas II of the Romanovs, Mikhail was shot and killed, dropping to the floor with a bullet through the brain, bleeding out. He finally became the Tsar he wanted, though not as imagined. The trial of Ravodonsky. Konstantin Ravodonsky, leader of Russian Fascist Party. You, the prosecutor, struggled to get a word out as he attempted to announce the fascist demagogue's sentence. Ravodonsky was practically foaming at the mouth throughout the entire trial. Unspeakable expletives and rude insinuations about the court's parentage. You Bolshevik pigs think you can put me down? I piss on your trial, you bastards. The prosecutor had run out of patience, raised his voice to speak over Ravodonsky's angered ramblings. Oh, to hell with this. Guards, get this animal out of here and kill him already. Nearly half a dozen NKVD guardsmen converged on Ravodonsky and began to drag him out of the court. The prisoner was hysterical and uncooperative the entire trip, and by the time they had reached the basement, Ravodonsky was still furiously ranting about Jews and Bolsheviks. The group abruptly stopped in the basement hall, and the commanding officer turned to his comrades. Someone give me a rag or a handkerchief or something. We need to shut this idiot up. One of the NKVD then wandered off to find a suitable object and soon returned with a cloth. Yeah, they just had to... You are weak. I could take all of you Bolshevik son of a bitch. Before the verbal assault could continue, a bullet ripped through the side of Ravodonsky's head. Definitely the most just killing probably this whole game. That or the Brotherhood dude, which is also pretty terrible. Finally, back to the USSR. Some good buffs right there. And I'm going to declare the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or I guess the Far Eastern one. We will get through this, though. We got the Siberian Siberian Free Territories. This is like the good path, I guess, maybe. The Union triumphant. The room was silent. The podium atop the stage was empty, and the flags behind stood firm. The glorious red banner, the flag of the revolution that reminded the Far East who Irkutsk were, the Soviet Union in its purest form. The room somehow went even more silent as Yagoda walked up on the stage and stood behind the podium, adjusting the microphone slightly before beginning to speak. Comrades, soldiers of the revolution, everyone under the Soviet Union, today is a glorious day for the people of Far East and Russia. As we fully are liberated the region and its inhabitants from their shackles, the power of the people has been shown to be triumphant over all others, and the Union stands, with its red banner flying high above all others. The soldiers of the Soviet Union Army gathered before the hall, came to clamp, and slowly the crowd cheered in celebration. At first, comrades embracing each other, proud of their victory. It is time, go out, drink, party, it's a time of celebration. The day of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics finally returns to the world stage, where it rightfully belongs. We have shown the revolution triumphant once more. People began to cheer louder, applause growing in volume, and the occasional cheer for Yagoda himself, but the soldiers stomped their boots onto the cold, wooden floor to remind everyone to keep quiet for now, and let the leader speak. But that is not the end of our liberation of Russia, my comrades. Soon we will march west. We will stomp out any fascists, any monarchists, and anyone who does not support the revolution. This is only the beginning, for now it is time to party. Go and be free. The people cheered louder and louder. Yagoda couldn't help but crack a smile as he watched the people cheer for him and for the Soviet Union. Next stop, the West. And yeah, you got to do all the stupid administrative strain stuff, and then yeah. The return of the Soviets. Just a few years ago, the Presidium Supreme Soviet's administration.
You think about the wiener cache?
I'm thinking about the wiener.
Now.
I need it.
His Cash's thoughts, his gay thoughts are. He's being a real zig right now.
Fucking. Hardly extended past Irkutsk. That is until General Secretary Yagoda liberated the full third of our union from the bandits, fascists, traitors, and clerics that occupied it. Our status as a true revolutionary vanguard of the Soviet people has been affirmed as all other threats in the Far East have been stomped. Yeah. Which they lost the Nazi menace. But fucking wieners, bro. Stop talking about wieners. But our work is still unfinished. There's still many menaces in the West we must deal with. Yeah, okay. Our people cry out for help. The restoration of our union awaits for them. From this point on, we will not take one step eastwards for the Soviet Russia. So, I'm gonna professionalize the judiciary now. Bam. First reform in a while. The new court. Consolidation of state authority, the satisfaction surrounding his numerary, whether judicially or otherwise. Yeah. Entire system professionalized, strict guidelines for required qualifications will developed systems of licensing exams. So basically, yeah. The state will be competent finally. Gotta wait a while for another one to happen. We reformed the securiocracy like a thief in the night. Major Shebrina carefully looked over his notes. The family matriarch had ratted out the family patriarch for previous membership in the Russian Fascist Party. The patriarch had denounced his own son for listening to bootleg Western records. The son, in turn, had denounced his mother for prostitution, a parasitic form of non-labor income. The major shook his head. "Your orders, comrade major?" "Over," said the squad leader. Over the radio, his NKVD agents were in place to breach the door. "Take the 3 of them. Put them in separate cells when you get here. I'll have my boys at the office type up something for each of them to sign." "Yes, comrade, over." "At least try to take them alive. Comrade Yagoda would hate for us to waste valuable paper." "Over." "Of course, comrade major." Over and out. We're gonna tighten bureaucratic oversight and then probably just go down this path to reduce administration strain and then go through the rest of this. So yeah, this guy was just stealing money in the bureaucracy. "If you have stolen the people's silver, we will find you with the people's lead. Performance unsatisfactory. Employee terminated. -1 manpower." Yeah, these NKVD dudes do not mess around. Back in the ASSR. Imperialism is merely capitalism in decay, wrote Lenin, and the imperialist conflict between nations is nearly as important as the class struggle. To this end, Lenin created the autonomous Soviet Socialist Republics. Yeah, small determination within Russian Federative Soviet Republic. Nevertheless, as our borders expand and more ethnic minorities are incorporated with them, the question whether or not the existing laws on the autonomy of the ASSR are sufficient and have been increasingly raised. The conservative faction claims that the autonomy they exhibit currently, this is the ability to draft a constitution within the bounds of the national constitution, are enough. Critics believe more autonomy, particularly when it comes to economics, must be given to minimize the economic exploitation of these ethnic minorities. I think I can't do segregation, man. I can't do it, even though it's just it's a nice political power, though, even though it's kind of useless. On the case, the people of the Commissariat Defense had been visited by the NKVD many times before, but never by this many officers. Two cousins band together in order of General Yagoda for a single investigation regarding missing funds, and so far both have not found much. You're certain you have no recollection of where these missing funds have gone? Well, the bureaucrat began, after a brief gulp. I'm fairly certain I saw Gennady skulking around. He filed a report implicating you as a suspect. Yeah, where has the money gone? The line of questioning continued for 17 more minutes. Oh shit, am I really out of... I am. To Senior Lieutenant, I've wronged you, every right to be angry with me. See, however, my idealism did not bear fruit. Challenge, I thank you, Secretary, you've never influenced. He's willing to talk, okay. The Union marches forward. Yet another Presidium meeting concluded, and the members, regardless of committee, dispersed. All felt the sense of calm and routine had returned to the Union. There was many reasons for this, and one asked around would have different opinions from different people. Some would say the resolution of the long-held struggle between the cliques of party and state officials had finally brought internal instability and consolidation. Others said that the resolution of the Far East had proved legitimacy of the Presidium's construction. Whatever the reason is, no one could deny the state was far a cry from what it was only a few years prior. Internal divisions had been removed, lands acquired, economic and social activities were increasing, foreign relationships were established, and providing by means which all had been accomplished, the Red Army stood as a modern professional experience in deadly force. There'd be many challenges and tribulations in the future. Those who thought about such things knew, but they would be overcome. The people, the government, and the state would act in unison to return to the promise of true socialism to all in Russia. For the Union marches forward forever. The future is ours. Back on the world stage, workers, peasants, and soldiers of this Union of Socialist Republics, we are embark on a return to the world stage. Well, shit. Of the workers' state to the world. The eyes of the oppressed see the red banner hoisted before them, and it gives them hope and determination. We shall soon stand by side with those who share our ideals and that stand against Nazi tyranny. We will bring about the re-liberation of all Union and the destruction of the fascist jackboot on our people and freedom for all mankind in the socialist world. However, the reactionaries are many, savage and relentless, in their desire to see the workers' state extinguished. But the tide has turned. The dark days of the 40s and 50s are behind us. Our enemies will not succeed. History is on our side. It always has been. Now, as we take our first step back to the international stage, I will say to our diplomats, I have full confidence in your skill, your devotion, and your loyalty. You shall be the vanguard of the revolution abroad. From today onwards, the oppressed nations of the world are no longer alone. Yagoda. Oh. Sergei Beznov was late in the decision of the Presidium, though one could easily justify Yagoda's seemingly abrupt calling of it. Not a single bit warning given. General Secretary Yagoda now, he's called aside, left his mouth, what becomes sixth time the day, as he thought about how things were becoming. Traffic was terrible, and the NKVD checkpoints were stifling, as always. But by the time he had finally made it to the Presidium, he decided something needed to be done, even if Yagoda had eyes everywhere. Only if he grew stronger day by day, he needed to do something. But first, he needed to rally the others. After he got past the guard at the doors, who kept looking at him and shaking his head while blocking the path, Comrade Beznov, your service to the Union has been faithful and admirable. Example, I cannot let you pass. Sergei blinked. And why not? He asked the officer, confused. Comrade, you have been promoted to the Bureau of Agriculture Advisory. Another representative has been selected. Sergei barely heard the rest. Was that why he hasn't been informed of the meeting? Promotion. He had been promoted, as the others, no doubt, funneled off and moved out of power and shuffled to where they could not even touch him. Where the thought of Sergei Beznov moving against conquering Yagoda was just laughable. It was non-existent. And so Sergei began to sob, and the guard confusedly looked around, unsure what to do. General Secretary gave a single passing small smile from the window before striding into the chamber of the Presidium, not even bothering to glance back at the entrance. The party is over, and there's much work to be done. The Wales accepts. So I set up like a organization and stuff, the Socialist International, and I founded it. But the first time I did this, there was like no socialist people in it because there was like none in the world. But there's a lot now. Collective fund is a damn. So I should close this and. COCOM. Do I get a like spirit for it? I do. Okay. Did these guys join? I wonder. No. The West Revolutionary. A decrease in poverty too. I just wanted to show you guys that I was what just happened. But again. Oh wait, is the COCOM different than the... do they own the COCOM? No, I founded it, so it should be mine. Sorry, I'm dumb. I was just confused because there's no thing, so join that. I joined that, I guess, I don't know. Scientific community. There, the generally is open. Oh, okay, that's all I had to do. Now I can invite them all. I got maybe a little too much political power, but hey, it works. Let's see if any of them join. Oh. A few did. I do wonder what would happen if I, Oh, okay. Welcome, comrades. Welcome, comrades. So many comrades. Oh, my goodness. Oh, I can't just, I just gotta keep hitting welcome, okay. Oh my gosh. Look at this. I don't really know. See, I don't know if I want to do this because I'm going to make a save right here. And if it fucks the game up because I can't go to war with them, I'll reload it. But I do want to see what would happen if there's a peaceful way, because we're all socialist. So I'm just going to approve all these motions. Approve, 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 approve. And then I'll, let's see, is there anything else I can do with this? No, I don't think so. 1 million. Wait, shit. I just want 10 million. And then 1 million. And then 1 million. 2 million, sure. I'm just very broke. Oh, wait, I don't know if I can even do that, because it's pretty bad. And yes, I'm going to vote in favor for a non-aggression pact. Do I just get... Oh, they all did the same decision I was supposed to do. That's why it happened. Okay. But... So we're all gonna be chilling, I guess. We're all happy campers. Oh, well, that's not what I thought it was gonna be, but... I don't really know how this works. Sorry, I know I normally don't show this kind of stuff, but... I just thought it was a little interesting. Increased Japanese cooperation. Message to Tokyo. Is that it? When's the vote? I guess I'll check back when it actually happens, if it does. That was way too fucking hard. Oh my god. Oh my goodness gracious. I love... Bruh. So, these guys... Usually it's a two-front war, but these guys didn't come in, I think, because they're in my pact. So there was a non-aggression pact with them or something. Oh, that was so awful. That took way too much work. At least I get all these chord, but... My goodness, man. And then we're gonna reunify Siberia, the Siberian Soviet Socialist Republics. Can exert influence on Kazakhstan. It's not too bad. Oh, I can militarily invade them too. I feel like there should be a way to unite because we're literally the same country, but just Eastern and Western. USSR reintegration. Memo number 92. Long live the rightful government of the USSR, said Donnie, into the receiver of the battered old telephone. Yes, yes, said his uncle, ignorantly. On the other line, it had been his uncle, a long-time secretary of the Communist Party, who had managed to get Danilili, or is that just Daniel, this job in the administration in the first place. How are you doing over there, boy? Has anyone given you trouble? No, die. I've been well, but listen, they've assigned me to write the next reintegration memo, but you've already positioned yourself to be writing important documents. Your first month? My God, Donnie, your mother's going to be so proud of... No, Uncle ignorantly. I don't know the first thing about how reintegration is going. I fell asleep at the briefing because they had me working double shift yesterday, transcribing old speeches. Daniel felt his throat tighten as he frantically tried to speak without outright shouting for the entire office to hear. Okay, Danny, ignitely. Okay, here's what I know. The territory that's being reintegrated is gigantic, nephew. Bigger than any nation could be asked to swallow up at once. Obviously, it's going badly compared to past reintegrations, but that doesn't mean it's going horribly. We've been adopting existing administrative entities within the territory as fast as we possibly can. But most are messy entities, left over from warlords. It's not clean. But we're slowly getting the territory plugged into our government apparatus. Unfortunately, we need to reform the systems to be better organized soon after. Is that clear enough to you? Yes, Uncle. No. We need to tell Mother about this, Uncle. He just slept through the freaking whole seminar. He had to know how to do his job. I just did Project Glasnost, which was a real project in the Soviet Union that, basically allowed free speech. It's freedom of speech, not freedom of consequence. You'll forgive us for not trusting you, yelled a man in the crowd of the USSR who had sent to the village. Poiter was a dissonant man's name, according to the Krill's local informant, and so Krillil scribbled the man's name into the NKVD notebook. Yes, yelled the representative in reply. Yes, I do forgive you. The new USSR is not the old one. We are for the people. Well and truly, we encourage all of you to speak your minds. We all see through your registry scream, you comrade. You just want information for us so we can be easily rounded up, cried a woman, and wrote her name down too. Do you want to know who and where you are, comrades, but only know how better to serve you, so we can better know where to distribute your food and any goods you may need, the rep said with an honest smile. And I know that you do not trust me, but I swear to you that this is a new USSR, one where freedom of speech and open dialogue is protected right. If you need any more evidence than this, consider the old government would have never allowed you to speak to a party member in this way. Please, comrades, fill out your registry information, and do not be afraid to speak for who you are. Each of you, safe in your own nation. Krill smiled. The townspeople reluctantly filed out to the registration tents that had been set up. He flipped to his notebook, shut, and handed it to one of the other plainclothes NKVD agents who was present. Round up all these who spoke out and make sure no one knows it's you. He curled his lip with a wicked grin. Oh, okay. So there is like it's not really a real glasnost, because it's all NKVD assholes. Maybe not. It did allow us to actually have voting, which would be pretty cool, I guess, for local officials and such. Yagoda's mercy. General Yagoda restlessly tapped his pen on his desk. The numbers weren't adding up. He'd done all he reasonably could be expected to do in order to make them do so. He frowned. Money was missing from the budget, too much for it to be a mere error. The perpetrator had done little to nothing to cover his tracks, likely expecting to get away with it due to his rank. He had not been clear that the years of corruption were over, that fraud would no longer be tolerated in his government, that transgressions against the legitimacy of the state would be met with death. Perhaps he had been too merciful in the past, too lenient, too truly send the correct message. Yes, if there's one thing that the comrade Yagoda knew was true of himself, it was that he was a merciful man. Anyone else in his position who was looking over this hideous world he ruled would have burned it all down. His old bony fingers spun the phone dial, and he lifted the receiver to his ear. Yes, Chairman? Asked his secretary. There's a man we need to make an example of, Comrade Yagoda said without joy, but only with duty. The merciful Comrade Yagoda is a privilege that can be revoked. This man is not merciful. He is, I don't know how he tricked himself into thinking he's merciful, but he is not. Amnesty for the old marshal. Alexander Valavansky, said a young, thin-lipped officer in a uniform that had been starched for far more than it had tasted dirt. There's been quite a bit of chatter about what to do with you. Valavansky, for his part, held himself with dignity, sitting tall in his chair before the metal table where he had just eaten stale dinner, in his uniform, as well maintained as he could, asking during imprisonment, I'm aware that I'm not leaving captivity alive, but my men and my officers only did as I told them to. Let them go. No. Don't worry about your officers. They'll be fine, Marshal. Is that a surprise to you? That I still call you that? It is your official title given to you by the USSR, after all. Listen, Marshal, Comrade Yagoda has some sympathy for you. Your army was given orders by the government. Defend the East, and so you did, even when it was no longer clear if the government still existed at all. It's obviously not the case that you were disloyal, Marshal, merely that you were confused as whom were the rightful heirs to the old government. Well, now you know. It's us. What are you getting at? Sighed Valavansky. What I'm getting at is that your reputation, Marshal. You received a great deal of criticism for failing to stand up to old Comrade Bukharin when you clearly disagreed with his policies, military or otherwise. What we're saying, Valavansky, is that Cameron Yagoda is looking forward to employ the same lovely arrangement. Welcome back to the USSR, Marshal Valavansky. Oh, that's cool. So is he like a marshal now that we can use down here? Oh, that guy's really good. I don't really see him down here. See, oh no, here it is. Oh, there he is. Pretty decent. I don't think he's as good as this guy though. No, it's because I've leveled him up though, I guess. But I get his generals too, and they're kind of busted. A memory of the mutineer. General Yagoda watched the lights flicker in his office. Reindustrialization was going well, but the old systems that had yet to be replaced and rewired were still nothing to rely on. Outdated or not, the fact that so much of his territory and power at all was testament to his success. He reached over his reports to drink from a glass of cool water, enjoying the feeling as it chilled in his throat and mouth. So much success, and they'd come so close, with mere inches of losing it all to the uprising of the Leninist turncoat Valery Sablin. It was a defining moment for the USSR, the greatest challenge she had ever faced. He remembered that day he received the report. For an instant, a single instant of cold-blooded panic and hopeless terror, Ginkrich thought he could understand what the old Bukharin felt the day they told him the Wehrmacht had invaded. Ginkrich wasn't there that day, but he'd been informants who were. They said Bukharin had shriveled when he heard, wilting like a flower before an inferno. And so then, when you go to face the same circumstance, this test of will, staring down national downfall in the face, he knew that he could not flounder as Bukharin had done. Yagoda remained strong, remained composed, and patiently moved to handle the upstart. Ginkrich smiled. It was the first of many tests of his resurgent nation. But there were many more to come. He took his pen in hand and returned to his paperwork once more, renewed in his will to succeed. The new USSR, like its leadership, will be stronger than the old. Now we just wait for them to pass. They did all their focuses too, so yeah, it's just time. Finally won that civil war. I'm able to reintegrate all this. Bam. And then I don't know why it's saying I can still prepare for that, but reunify the motherland. Russian, Soviet Federative, Socialist Republics. And then yeah, all this stuff is the same. But thanks for watching. This was my path. I don't want to deal with all this just because it's not really worth it. I will command annex that to make it look better in the thumbnail, but besides that, this is as far as they're getting.
I can't keep you anything though. That's the problem.
But it's pretty sick. Thank you for watching.